Hi everyone, I'm Aaron Clifford from KOVR. I am now a kind of a grizzled veteran of this industry, if there is such a thing. Mostly because I've only been doing it for about 5, 6 years, but the technology is still so new. I'm gonna flip right on here. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about who KO is. So the KO Group is our parent company. They are a group of highly specialized 3D modelers, very talented folk, and they do commercials primarily. One of our main clients is the Brick, also OK Tire, and they do a lot of the ads for them across Canada. You can see some of the examples here of some of the high quality 3D they do for those commercials. In fact, the Brick mostly doesn't even have real furniture in any of their ads anymore. So a couple of years ago, they started thinking about, okay, how do we take this 3D modeling talent and start doing like other things with it? So that's when they founded KOVR, which is the XR focused wing of the KO group. And that's when they brought me on. So we started off by doing a lot of kind of smaller projects and a lot of almost sample demo projects. I'll get to that in a little bit more, but we've really evolved over the last couple of years and we're really starting to pick up some steam now. So it's pretty exciting. All right, and so who am I? I'm Aaron, obviously, and I'm a voxel artist, Unity developer, Snapchat official lens creator, and super enthusiastic, random tech tinkerer. So I like to kind of dabble in everything and assemble whatever I can and just kind of put things together and see how they work together. Um, so here's kind of my Snapchat experience thus far. I have just pushed over 33 million views in the last little bit and about 1.3 million shares. You can see a sample of some of my lenses up here. These are some of the more popular ones. The funny thing being that I've noticed in some cases there's an inverse reaction to how much work I put into a lens to how many shares it gets. The one at the top right up there you can see is Gator Pet. That was literally I in Photoshop clipped out the picture of the front of an alligator's face and made it go over your pet's face, and that one got millions of views, while ones lower down took considerably longer and got considerably less views. Um, it's a fickle market, but once people seem to like something, it just gets shared, and that's one of the things that I love about Snapchat, and one of the things I love about where we're at with things like Snapchat and Instagram, and just the really big consumer AR right now, because it's possible to crank out ideas really quickly and just get a reaction from people out of them very quickly. So my Unity journey has been considerably longer than my Snapchat journey. I started in about 2014. I had been a web and Flash developer for years and years, way too many years before that. And then we had a project where you can see on the far right here, we actually built a vending machine, a digital vending machine where you had to do things like jumping jacks and push-ups and burpees and crafts and all that sort of stuff to get the prizes out of the vending machine. So you can see people gathered around it on the left here. And so basically you'd go up to the vending machine and you'd have to do all these fun tasks in order to get prizes out of it. At the time, I started looking around for solutions as to how we could do it. And for what I wanted to do, Unity seemed to be the best fit, and I just kind of stuck with it from there. Then I started making my own game. This was my first kind of foray into extended reality into VR. It was a 3D VR-based Pac-Man game that was a lot of fun, but never actually quite launched. But had a and then more recently, working on through the looking class for the University of Alberta Department of Ophthalmology, and that was, as Mike was saying, the it you performed a whole bunch of tasks within the virtual environment while experiencing different eye conditions. And so this helped drive empathy in the case of this, it was mostly directed towards a fundraiser for the department. And so the people showed up at this gala event. It was all themed through the looking glass, and they got to go into VR and experience this. And currently we're working on Stratos, which is a VR based learning management system, essentially. So kind of moving towards the idea of like Udemy for VR. So allowing people to create their own modules and upload them and resell them through this. This is just the home area where you sort of launch in. It's sort of a university in the clouds. All right, so that's kind of all the foundational. That's who we are. That's what I am. Blah, blah. All right, so where we started in augmented reality. Augmented reality was actually one of the first projects I was brought on to do. As I mentioned before, we worked with the brick, and the brick had a fairly unique problem that they wanted to solve. They had a line of furniture called Designed to Be. I shouldn't say they still have it. And what they were finding was that Designed to Be allowed you to mix and match from a whole bunch of different pieces of furniture and create your own sofas, and then mix and match from a whole bunch of different fabrics and pillows and all sorts of stuff and create the exact sofa that you wanted in your home. The problem that they were facing was that people would walk into the brick, into a physical store, and they'd look on the show floor and they'd see the couch and they'd say, yes, that's the one I want, or they'd discard it immediately without ever bothering to customize it at all. So what they wanted was they wanted a digital builder that would allow people to customize the sofa and see it in the real world. And that's pretty much where we started in augmented reality. As you can see up above here, on the top left, you could assemble the different pieces of the sofa, then you could choose your color, and then you could place it in the real world and see how it fit at true scale in your environment. So how it evolved. From that project, we then started experimenting on a very, very rapid scale. We were creating probably 2 or 3 different demos for different industries a month at one point. And here's just a couple of them. What you can see here is at the very top, we experimented with making a sign builder so that sign manufacturers could customize a sign, place it up on the side of a wall, and then show the client what their future sign would look like. So we had all sorts of different channel lettering and different fonts and that sort of stuff, and would allow people to customize their store sign and then potentially order it. That one was a lot of fun to build. We didn't get the job. We also did a lot of experimentation with Euphoria. And again, fantastic technology. It was all marker based. This was very early on. You can see we had sort of one for the city of Edmonton there that showed a construction project that would kind of pop up off the page. And then at the very bottom there, we have a demo that we did that was the old memory match game that people could run off of those paper coloring sheets that they give out in restaurants like Denny's. Now, what we found was that we were doing so many demos that building a new app every single time was tedious and buggy, and we just couldn't iterate fast enough. And that's when I started experimenting with Snapchat. So we moved from creating demos for iOS and for Android into just creating very light, very quick lenses that could demonstrate more or less the same things and be built in hours as opposed to days. We really accelerated our demo pipeline, and that actually helped us get some work because we were able to demonstrate augmented reality so much more quickly. What we found was that for a lot of clients, all they really wanted to see was something that related to their industry in augmented reality, and it didn't matter to them how it was deployed at that point when we were in the selling phase. So how is it going now? Well, it's crazy right now. It is definitely an industry in its infancy. It is definitely a lot of fun, but we're finding more success right now with virtual reality because it has matured considerably, especially with the launch of the Quest and the Quest 2. There's more people who have it. There's more people who are using it on a day-to-day basis. But with augmented reality, clients just don't know what it is or how to use it yet. They are still learning, and we have to be the ones who teach them. But they do know that they want it. I definitely have found a lot of situations where people are excited about the technology. They see it, they love it, but they don't necessarily know what they want to do with it or how it works yet. And they also don't know what it's worth. With virtual reality, we have found that there are a lot of cases, especially in training right now, where you can prove to a client how much they're going to make off of it. Essentially, what it's going to cost them or what it's going to save them in training costs, or what it's going to end up, basically what their return on investment is going to be. Virtual reality actually has a fair number of these cases now. Augmented reality is just starting to skim the surface of those. Probably the best example right now of an augmented reality market that has any sort of good metrics around what the return on investment is for a business is Snapchat and is Instagram, because it's very demonstrable how many people see your ad for what you spend. And it's actually a very good return these days to be investing in lenses for your business. Well, I guess I started skipping ahead of myself. So there is hope. Instagram, Snapchat promotions work. There's more case studies every day, and the hardware costs are coming down and the quality is going up. We're definitely starting to see the rise of more wearable augmented reality devices. But right now, the best way to get it out to multiple people is still the phone. And one of the things that I'm really excited about at the moment is a technology that is really starting to take shape, which is multi-user scanning of environments and 3D objects. Apple's adding in LiDAR, which is something that I thought was coming a long time ago with Google's Tango, but then they sort of abandoned. But Apple kind of picked up the torch. This is Recite.io. They actually have a fairly good SDK that's in an early state. They're not the only ones by any stretch of the imagination, but they have an SDK that allows you to have multiple people sharing an augmented reality experience in a single place. And this is really where augmented is going to need to go, in my opinion. in order to really get some good traction. It's all fine and dandy right now for us to have augmented reality on our phones, but sharing that experience is what makes it impactful. Sharing that experience is going to be what really, really moves the market forward. And so one of the things that I'm doing just on my own, not necessarily attached to KOVR, is I'm working on a slot car racing game that is called Hidden Dimension Racing, that will essentially be slot cars in a given space at different scales depending on the space. And will be multiplayer so that multiple people can be standing around a track or moving around a track and racing their cars. This is using the Recite.io framework so that you can actually be racing in like a park, and also that you will have your own track pieces. You'll be able to assemble them and create your own tracks that will stay in a location and maintain high scores and all that sort of fun stuff. So that's the current project. Some of the key technologies that I think are really, really driving what's going on right now are, of course, in hardware. For me, it's smartphones and tablets. HoloLens is great, and I love it for industry use. I really think that it is really one of the best devices you can get on the market right now, the HoloLens 2. But I am going nuts, like many other industry professionals, over Apple's use of LiDAR. The big thing for me that I think that is going to drive is really a lot of these technologies aren't truly accessible until like your everyday person can pick up their device and start using them and start creating with them. That's one of the joys of Snapchat, is that they have built in a lot of tools that allow you to feel creative, even if it's just putting something on your face, even if it's just interacting with the environment in a different way. You get to be the creator. They had a really great example at one point that was just an augmented reality drawing thing where you could just flow a line through space and add little decorations, and it got very high engagement. And so I think that augmented reality is going to become a lot more useful for a lot more people once people can capture 3D objects from their environment and start using them as augmented reality objects. So even just something as simple as being able to highlight something on a broken object and send it to someone, or and of course being able to mark up 3D objects with training or help information, being able to have a company create a new product and have them be able to essentially show right off that product what the operational specs are of it, or how you can manipulate it. These are all great examples of how being able to capture your own 3D objects without having to send them out to be 3D modeled is going to be a really big advantage and a really big mover of augmented reality in the future. Software, this is not necessarily where I think things are going, but this is kind of our tech stack at the moment. For Unity, we use AR Foundation, which includes AR Core and AR Kit for Android and iOS. As I mentioned, and will mention time and time again, use heavy use of Lens Studio in order to just rapidly prototype things. I think that I'm also, the fact that it uses JavaScript is very simple for me. It allows me to just get code up and running very quickly, and their documentation is fantastic. Spark AR for doing things on the Instagram side. Honestly, I mostly only use Spark for client projects. So if I actually have a client who needs something on Instagram, that's when I use it. Kind of Lens Studio is sort of my playground, and Spark tends to be where more professional stuff goes. And honestly, the way things are going with machine learning right now, it's just hand in hand with anything that you would want to do in augmented reality. The big thing around that, of course, is that augmented reality is only going to get better as machines can understand what they're looking at. And there are some new tools that make machine learning very, very simple. And I think that is going to only progress. And again, adoption, I don't consider myself a wildly great programmer or anything. I am, I say that there's a lot of kind of different types of people in the industry. I tend to be more of a raccoon. I tend to just scavenge through other people's garbage technologies and see what I can put together. As well as if I can get at it, the really nice technology, but I'll take anything. So, and I think that as machine learning becomes accessible to people like me who aren't necessarily hardcore programmers, that's where it's really, really going to start to shine, because it needs to be in the hands of not just the real geniuses, but also very creative people, also just your everyday person. And that's it for my presentation. I don't know how much time I was supposed to have, but yeah, I'm definitely open to any questions, or to expand upon what I've said so far.
I just want to, before we get to the questions, just thank you, Aaron, for the great presentation. And hopefully, I know that they came up with some questions when they were doing research, and maybe they were inspired with some questions that they want to ask you from the great information that you shared. And let's just give Aaron one more round of applause with our emojis.
Thanks.
All right. If you do have questions, go ahead and turn your mic on. Now, I don't know if you have the host panels. I might have had to disable those. So,
yeah, I've got it.
Sorry for the students here. But if you do want to talk, I can probably give you megaphone access. I think. Let me see here. Let's see here. Yes. So if you do want to talk, I can give you megaphone access. So anyone have any questions for Aaron? All right, Casper, let me just give you megaphone access. Give me 1 sec here. All right, go ahead, Casper.
Is it working?
Yep.
Yep.
So with the KOVR stuff, that I had to do some research before the presentation, and I learned that the KOVR stuff is like a division of a much larger company that's been around for quite a while. And I'm wondering if, because there's now a VR division dedicated to it, I assume that means that in the industry out there, there's like a lot more need for AR and VR related stuff compared to, say, even a few years ago or before the division was founded.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's I'm definitely seeing more and more people who are looking for people who are experienced with VR and AR, but also a lot of groups and the thing we found over the last few years is that a lot of companies like ours are forming smaller groups within them to be able to do that sort of work internally, especially in the like in engineering and in any sort of like big scale project planning. I know that places like even the city of Edmonton around Commonwealth is looking at working with people for helping plan out things like concert planning and that sort of stuff. And there's more and more tools showing up all the time. So I think that this is, it's definitely growing.
Great, thanks, Casper. Any other questions for Aaron? I know you guys came up with some great ones. I don't know if you remembered them or if you were inspired. I do have a question while you guys are thinking. So you mentioned, Aaron, about Snap chat lens development, and that's kind of your wheelhouse. If we don't teach it in the program, at least not right now. If the students wanted to maybe get started and explore, do you have any kind of suggestions for where they might look to get started?
Honestly, the just download Lens Studio and pop it open. It is full of tutorials. It's full of examples. There's just it is. They've done a really great job of making it easy to get started. Yeah, if you just go to the Lens Studio site, it's really and it's a great way, honestly, like if you're focused on 3D and creating really beautiful 3D objects, it's a great way to show them off. Either just plopping them in the environment and snapping them, or attaching them to people's heads. There's it's you can attach literally anything to someone's head and they'll take a picture of themselves with it. There's someone out there who is interested in whatever it is you want to create.
That's awesome. Thank you. Any other questions from the students or Ali or Tyler for Aaron? Go ahead, Tyler. Oh, let me give you a microphone. Give me 1 sec here. It's not super easy.
I can do it myself.
Oh, good. I had you a host. Awesome. Go ahead.
No worries. So Aaron, thanks for your presentation. I wanted to touch on one thing that you said when you were talking about the brick and working with them as a client, and maybe you can expand on how this works with other clients. But you talked about how they came to you and they had a problem. And you also talked about how clients who come to you and they're not really sure what to expect from AR or VR, they don't know what it does. Can you talk a little bit about that process of understanding a client's problem and maybe some of the things that you do to get more information from them and help come up with a solution when you're starting to prototype and when you're starting to make demos for them?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, the funny thing is that the brick is such. I mean, I could go so in depth on that one because that was such a bizarre project. We started on that app basically day one of when KOVR was founded. It was our first thing we started working on, and we worked on it for probably a solid year and a half. And in the end, we ended up dropping the augmented reality feature and stuck with just the ability to assemble the sofas and then integrating it with their website. Now, this was because the brick ultimately is a very technologically conservative company. They have been burned in the past with large projects that they did a lot of like tech rollout to, iPads to every store, that sort of stuff, and they found that their salespeople just didn't use them. And the other thing that they found was that the augmented reality was, especially at the time, this is a couple years ago now, still very shaky and a little awkward to use for the end users, and that just kind of scared them off. They're very cognizant of their brand. Essentially, for the clients that we've had since then, the big things I do is you have to really start with what's the problem they're looking to solve. And in the case of the brick, it really was just people didn't look at the options that were available to them for the sofas. But in a lot of cases, it comes down to a couple of questions that you need to answer right off the top, and that's what are they trying to sell, and this is a very, very loose term in that they may not actually be selling a product. They may be selling an idea. They may be there's, when I say sell, I don't necessarily mean just a transaction. I mean, what's their goal here and what's going to move them forward as a company. Um, and in a lot of cases, the next question you're going to want to ask is um, who are they pitching it to? Because honestly, there's augmented is still very early in its development, and so you need to kind of see where you think this is going to happen, because a lot of people honestly will not install an app on their phone just for a very short interaction. So that's where I tend to push things towards places like Snapchat and Instagram, because then you can show an augmented experience without someone having to put something additional on their phone. So there's kind of a list of things that I go through. I don't have it with me, but yeah, I mean, those are kind of two of the biggest is, what are they trying to sell, and who are they trying to sell it to? And that's just, I mean, I'm kind of floundering here trying to explain it better than that. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Do you find that one of the bigger challenges is ROI for clients when it comes to augmented reality, especially because you talked about those barriers of the audience maybe not being comfortable with the technology. The technology is still kind of new, even though it's been around since 2006, basically, when we got the iPhone.
Yeah.
Is ROI a challenge for you when somebody comes to you, or do they come to you already thinking that AR is something that they want to try?
I find that we're pushing sales a lot more than we're pulling them. Like, we don't have a lot of people coming directly to us and saying, I absolutely want augmented reality. I think for me, one of the biggest things is just kind of wrapping your head around what's augmented good for. Virtual reality is almost a no-brainer as far as what it's good for. It takes you out of where you are and can put you anywhere, and that's fantastic. But augmented is a little more slippery, because there's a lot of things that seem great on the surface for augmented, but that are actually a little bit difficult in practice. One example is wayfinding. Wayfinding is something that is in use right now in a lot of places, and it works quite well, but it also pulls people's focus from looking straight on to looking down at their phone as they move. So augmented is about finding that balance between looking at your phone and seeing the world. And so, for an example of wayfinding, if you can navigate someone with audio to where they're supposed to be and then have them pull it up and see an augmented experience, that's much better than having them have to focus and look around. Anytime they're looking through their phone's all they're seeing. And so that's one of the challenges that I'm finding with augmented right now is allowing people to expand that augmented experience from beyond just what their phone offers, while still knowing that most people won't do an augmented thing if you have to put a headset on them or whatever. Their phone is probably their best device.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer and the questions. Just one last call for questions. Just being aware of Aaron's time and your time. It looks like we have one question from Sky, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's go ahead and give you megaphone. Give me one sec.
Can you hear me all good?
Yep.
All right. For the future of AR, do you see it leaning more towards entertainment or business, or both, in whatever time frame you feel like answering?
In the short term, um, well, I mean, honestly, right now, it's already got a decent foothold in both. Um, Entertainment is fantastic. Snapchat and uh, Instagram are doing great things with it, and that's expanding as as we speak. Basically, the machine learning stuff is fantastic, and especially around retail. I think that machine learning is the link that they really need for great retail experiences in Snapchat and in other augmented, because as they've shown with their Snapchat, uh, did a whole bunch of work around machine learning to recognize feet so that you could do sneakers. And it seems silly, but everybody needs shoes basically, and shoes are a huge market, and people like to wear nice shoes. So it was a really great place for them to start. And then on the other hand, on the business side, they've actually shown. So companies like Scope AR in Edmonton have actually shown great return on investment for using HoloLens in places like NASA. I don't know if you guys have already had the Scope AR speech or had someone from Scope AR, so I don't know how much I would need to go into it. But basically, they had engineers who were walking from point A to point B and back, and they were only allowed to keep a certain amount of information in their mind because calculations that they were using were so core to what they were doing that if they screwed them up, they would they could potentially, blow something up. So what they found is that if they took the table where all of these papers were and they moved it to an augmented thing above them, then they didn't have to walk back and forth all day, and all they were doing was saving that walking time, and it was making them more efficient, and they could put a solid number on that, and they can do that for all sorts of things. Augmented's um, really big advantage is going to be putting relevant information on the object you're looking at. So if you open the back of a washing machine and you're a repair person, and you can just bring up the manual and see every single part and whether it's available, that saves you time. It saves you phoning around. It saves you doing all those sort of things. And that's true of any sort of repair job. That's true of any sort of job where you are manipulating things. Could be made faster if you don't have to look away from the object by too much. And so I think that's going to be one of the really big things coming up in the future is we're going to find even more machine learning augmented mashups where you'll be able to possibly even have a quick look across something, and the machine learning will know whether or not it's broken without you even having to evaluate.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And Aaron, just being aware of your time, I'm going to wrap it up here. So thank you for spending some time with us today and for preparing this presentation to the students.